You have spent years learning to read people, to sense what they need before they ask, to carry their pain as though it were your own. And then one day you look in the mirror and see something that chills you. The calculations, the emotional withholding, the way you have learned to use your insight not to heal but to control. You have become the very thing you swore you would never be. This video shows what happens when the INFJ's gift becomes a weapon, turned both inward and outward. Welcome to Power and Myth. This is not a comfortable topic. And if you are watching this, it is likely because you have already felt the shift. You have caught yourself in moments that do not align with who you believed yourself to be. You have noticed the way you can read someone's vulnerabilities and choose precisely which thread to pull to make them doubt themselves. You have felt the satisfaction of being needed, not because you genuinely want to help, but because their dependence confirms your superiority. You have withheld warmth as punishment. You have made people feel small to protect yourself from being seen. And the worst part is not that you have done these things. The worst part is that you recognize the pattern. You know what this looks like. You have survived narcissists. You have studied them. You have sworn you would never become one. And yet here you are, standing at the mirror's edge, looking at a reflection you do not want to claim. Here is what most people do not understand about narcissism and the INFJ. Narcissism is not a personality trait you are born with. It is a fortress you build when empathy becomes unbearable. And no one carries empathy the way an INFJ does. You do not simply understand other people's emotions. You absorb them. You walk into a room feeling neutral and walk out carrying someone else's despair. You sense the anger beneath the smile, the grief beneath the joke, the loneliness in the person who seems most surrounded. And for years, you do what the wounded healer does. You transmute it, you take their pain, and you alchemize it into something bearable for them. But there is a cost to this that no one tells you about when they celebrate your empathy. The cost is that eventually, you must protect yourself from feeling anything at all. Because if you do not, you will drown in what you carry. This is where the shift begins. Not in cruelty, in exhaustion. You have given and absorbed and transmuted until the day comes when you realize that no one is coming to save you. No one is absorbing your pain the way you absorb theirs. No one is reading you the way you read them. And in that moment of recognition, something hardens. You stop offering yourself. You start calculating. You begin to use the very gift that once made you a healer as a method of control. Because if people cannot be trusted to care for you, then at least you can ensure they need you. At least you can make certain that you are never the vulnerable one again. The shapeshifter knows this territory well. The shapeshifter is the archetype that wears many faces, not from deception in the beginning, but from the exhausting work of translation between worlds. You learned early that different people required different versions of you, and you became skilled at providing exactly what each person needed to see. But here is where it becomes dangerous, when you shift not to connect but to manipulate. When you present the face that will get you what you want rather than the one that reflects who you are. When you use your intuitive knowing to find someone's weaknesses and exploit them. This is the shadow side of the shapeshifter. The one who has worn so many masks that they have forgotten there was ever a face beneath them. The one who uses their gift of perception as a weapon. Let me show you what this actually looks like, because it is subtle. You are in a conversation with someone who cares about you. They are trying to reach you. They sense something is wrong. And you know exactly what to say to redirect them. You can feel the precise emotional note that will make them doubt their own perception. You can sense which vulnerability to press to make them apologize for questioning you. And you do it, not with shouting, not with apparent cruelty, with surgical precision. You make them feel that they are the problem, that they are too sensitive, that they are imagining things. And you watch them fold. You watch them take on the blame for noticing that you have withdrawn. And there is a part of you that feels nothing. Worse than nothing. There is a part of you that feels satisfied because their confusion confirms what you have come to believe. That you are smarter, that you see more clearly. That you are, in fact, superior to the people who once dared to hurt you by failing to understand you. This is the thing about becoming the narcissist you feared. It does not announce itself. It does not arrive with self-awareness. It creeps in through the same door that your empathy once lived behind. You tell yourself you are simply protecting yourself. You tell yourself that setting boundaries means being strategic about who gets access to you. You tell yourself that people have used you for too long, and now it is your turn to be in control. And all of this is partially true. But here is where the shadow begins, when protection becomes domination. When boundaries become walls designed not to keep you safe but to keep others small. When you stop using your insight to understand and start using it to punish. Jung spoke about the shadow as the parts of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge. And he warned that what we do not integrate, we become. The INFJ who has spent years defining themselves against narcissists, who has studied the patterns, who has sworn never to repeat them, is precisely the INFJ most vulnerable to embodying those patterns in their shadow form. Because you know the territory so well. You know how narcissists think because you have survived them. You know how they manipulate because you have been the target. And when you are exhausted enough, when you are hurt enough, when you have been misunderstood and abandoned and invisible for long enough, you reach into the toolkit you swore you would never open. And you discover that you are devastatingly good at it. Here is what this looks like in practice. You withhold emotional warmth as punishment. Someone disappoints you, and instead of naming it, you go cold. You remain polite. You remain functional. But the warmth is gone, and they can feel it, and you know they can feel it, and that is the point. You want them to suffer the confusion of not knowing what they did wrong. You want them to chase your approval. Because for once, you are not the one doing the chasing. For once, you are not the one confused and desperate to understand. You have reversed the dynamic, and it feels like power. Or you create dependence. You position yourself as the only one who truly understands someone. You become indispensable. You make them feel that without you, they will be lost. And you do this not because you want to help them but because their need for you confirms your value. You are addicted to being needed because being needed means you cannot be abandoned. And if you sense them pulling away, if you sense them finding strength or perspective elsewhere, you subtly undermine it. You ask questions designed to make them doubt themselves. You point out flaws in their thinking. You remind them of how lost they were before you arrived. You do the very thing that was done to you. You make them smaller so that you can remain large. Or you use your intuition as a weapon. You know what people fear. You know where their shame lives. And when you are angry or feel threatened, you reach for it. Not overtly. You are far too intelligent for that. You do it with a single sentence that lands like a blade. A comment that sounds like concern but is actually designed to destabilize. A question that pretends to be curiosity but is actually an accusation. You watch the impact. You watch them shrink, and you feel nothing. Or worse, you feel relief. Because their pain confirms that you still have power in a world that has made you feel powerless for far too long. This is the shadow of the wounded healer. Chiron, the wounded healer of myth, used his wound to help others. But there is another version of this story that rarely gets told. The healer who has been wounded so many times that they begin to wound others as a form of protection. The one who uses their knowledge of pain to inflict it rather than transmute it. The INFJ who becomes this is not evil. They are exhausted. They are protecting a self that has been betrayed too many times. But the protection has become the problem. The fortress has become a prison. And the people they are hurting are often the very people who could have loved them, if only they had been allowed close enough to try. So what do you do when you recognize yourself here? When you see that you have crossed the mirror's edge and become the thing you swore you would never be? The first thing is to name it without collapsing into shame. Shame will make you defend the behavior. Shame will make you justify it. Shame will tell you that you had no choice, that everyone else is worse, that you are simply surviving. But recognition is different from shame. Recognition says, I see what I have become. I understand why it happened. And I am choosing differently now. The truth is this. You are not a narcissist in the way that someone with narcissistic personality disorder is a narcissist. You are an empath who has armored themselves so thoroughly that the armor has become a second skin. And here is the difference. A true narcissist cannot see what they are doing. They cannot hold the paradox of being both wounded and wounding. But you can. You are reading this. You are recognizing yourself. You are capable of the very thing that defines the INFJ at their best. You can see yourself clearly, even when what you see is uncomfortable. That capacity is the way back. The way back is not through self-flagellation. It is not through deciding you are irredeemable and must isolate yourself further. The way back is through integration. Through acknowledging that the part of you that became manipulative did so because the part of you that is deeply empathic was overwhelmed. Through understanding that you do not need to reject the wounded part. You need to stop letting it make decisions from a place of fear. You need to remember that protection and connection are not opposites. That you can be discerning about who you let close without becoming cold. That you can set boundaries without turning yourself into a fortress. That your depth and your sensitivity are not weaknesses to be managed through control. They are the core of who you are, and they are worth protecting in ways that do not require you to harm others. This is the work we explore here at Power and Myth. Not the work of being told you are valid. Not the work of having your behavior excused. But the work of seeing yourself entirely. Shadow and light. Wound and gift. The part that became the narcissist and the part that is still, beneath all the armor, the person who feels too much and cares too deeply and longs to be seen without having to perform. You are not broken beyond repair. You are someone who learned to survive in ways that worked until they stopped working. And now you are being asked to do something harder than surviving. You are being asked to integrate. To take the parts you have rejected and bring them back into wholeness. If you recognized yourself in this video, I want to know which moment landed hardest. Was it the emotional withholding? The weaponized intuition? The satisfaction of being needed? Tell me in the comments. And if you are ready to continue this work, to explore the shadow and the light together, subscribe. You are part of something here. The Power and Myth community is not a place where we pretend to be perfect. It is a place where we name what is true, even when it is uncomfortable. Especially when it is uncomfortable. Because that is how we become whole. Until next time, find your power, know your myth.